The Total War series is by far my favourite real-time strategy game series. I love how it always manages to walk a fine line between historical accuracy and cinematic spectacle. The mix of turn-based and real-time gameplay makes each game absolutely addicting to play. Much like Civilization, the Total War series is famous for that "just one more turn" lie which all players tell themselves before realising it's 5 in the morning and they haven't moved for 12 hours. And the Total War fanbase seems to broadly agree on which entries are the best: Rome Total War, Medieval 2 Total War, and Shogun 2 Total War, with the recent Three Kingdoms also winning widespread acclaim. But after years of playing these games, I've come to realise my favourite entry in the series is actually 2009's Empire Total War, and as it turns out, this is a bit of a controversial pick. While it released to near universal critical acclaim, for many hardcore Total War players it was widely disliked. Long-standing criticisms of the AI and a general disinterest of the time period as opposed to the more romanticised medieval or ancient periods previously covered. And initially I agreed. There's just something about two lines of infantry crashing into each other with spears and shields, a thrill which isn't really matched by two lines of riflemen shooting at each other from a few meters away. But having played so many hours of Empire, I've come to realise this is only one small part of a much bigger picture. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to explain not only why Empire is my favourite Total War game, but why I think it's the best game in the entire series. Now first things first, let's talk about musket warfare for a second. As I said, a sentiment often expressed by Total War fans is that this kind of warfare is weird and dumb and makes for boring, terrible gameplay. But in my opinion, nothing could be further from the truth. For those unfamiliar, the way musket warfare worked in real life was all about accuracy and numbers. Muskets were way too inaccurate to be a reliable weapon for a single person, which is why muskets had to be fired in large groups to be effective. The goal was to be the fastest shooter, to whittle down the enemy's numbers so that when the time came to fix bayonets and charge, the enemy would either run away or be outnumbered and defeated. Now I get why some people wouldn't exactly find this kind of thing thrilling, or at least not as engaging as two units of swordsmen crashing into each other. But not only can musket warfare be just as exciting, it's also far more tense and flexible in gameplay. In Empire, two units of infantry engaging one another is the ultimate test of training and tactics. In an even matchup, it can be nail-biting to see if your troops can hold out long enough against the enemy, to see if they can fire faster to weaken their opponents, or if need be, pull off a desperate all-out charge to shock the enemy into a rout if the tide isn't turning in your favour. You know how in most Total War battles there's that period of time where you organise your army's formation and try and anticipate your opponent's moves, hoping you've made all the right command decisions before the armies finally clash? Well, the battles in Empire Total War essentially extend that moment, turning it into an actual tool you can use to triumph against a larger force. Yes, an enemy army may outnumber you, but because of the ranged nature of the combat, you have so many more options when it comes to formations and positioning, which can make all the difference when battle finally begins. Old tricks like the hammer and anvil can get the job done in many instances, but when infantry can form square, a surefire cavalry charge can quickly transform into a dangerous trap. You may think you have it in the bag when your enemy only has their artillery left, but close-range canister shot can completely wipe out your remaining troops if you attack it wrong. Examples like this make each victory all the more satisfying, because winning by sheer brute force is actually far more difficult than you might expect. It's certainly possible, but not nearly as rewarding. It's just as cinematic and exciting, but in a different way. Historical accuracy resulting in deeper gameplay is also something which applies to the campaign map as well. Rather than having to use only family members as governors and generals, in Empire you can simply recruit generals from regular units. Cities and settlements are always governed, meaning you can mobilise your full strength faster, but it also presents more targets for the enemy. Not everything is kept behind city walls. Much of your nation is spread out across the countryside. This can help form a strong backbone for your economy, but it also presents your enemy with valuable targets and vice versa. You can essentially fight a war on an economic front as well as a military one. Capturing a factory or farm or sending privateers to raid shipping can mean your enemy won't be able to field as big an army. You can play the long game, crippling an enemy nation before you even reach a grand set-piece battle. Campaigning is just so much more versatile and intriguing. Rather than skirting around the realities of the period to try and contort Empire into a more traditional Total War experience, the historical aspects are used to enhance gameplay for a wholly different, but far richer experience. If there was a single word to sum up why I love Empire Total War so much though, that word is scale. In contrast to the likes of the medieval or Roman periods, which in and of themselves did get pretty damn epic, Empire Total War is the first game in the series which went truly worldwide. This game is enormous on both the campaign map and on the battlefield. Again, this is something accurate to the period. Many of the battles in the Napoleonic Wars, for example, involved hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and thanks to Total War's engine, we get to see that scale on screen. But the large scale of the game doesn't just mean bigger and more complicated, it means Creative Assembly could have made an entire game out of each corner of this gigantic game world. Each theatre of war offers so many unique factions and gameplay styles, you could play it for hundreds and hundreds of hours and not even scratch the surface. In Europe, for example, it's an almost classic Total War experience. Several large nations to choose from with their own strong and weak units, campaigns where you fight several big field and siege battles to control as big a chunk of the map as possible, but then you choose to play as the British Empire and suddenly this formula is turned completely on its head. As Britain, you can conquer plenty and fight a lot of battles, but the goal is not domination, instead it's influence and control. You have a proper empire to maintain, with territories in both hemispheres and in every climate. Your strength comes from your navy, and each land army you create is unique, made up of units indigenous to that region. Or you can play as the American colonies and fight a war of independence against this vast empire. Or you can even play as some Native American nations, using guerrilla warfare, speed and numbers to overwhelm far more technologically advanced enemies. Or you can say to hell with nations and empires altogether and literally just play as pirates. I've had this game for years and I'm still finding nice surprises like this in each campaign. Now, this game isn't perfect, and although it's my favourite in the Total War series, some of the criticisms people levy at it are legitimate. For one thing, the AI can be very stupid. To be fair, AI problems have always plagued this series, but these shortcomings are especially prevalent in Empire. While some of the problems have been patched, the AI still makes some incredibly stupid decisions. I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to kill my own units because no matter how many times I tell them to do something, they just stay where they are doing a dumb dance. And sometimes the enemy AI's lack of intelligence can turn what should be a challenging, decisive confrontation into shooting fish in a barrel because the enemy troops don't know how to climb a wall properly. The problems with the AI also extend to the auto-resolve feature, which honestly has never been great in any Total War game. Still though, it can feel like busy work having to spend time handily winning engagements which for some reason the AI thought was a surefire defeat. This is especially bad with siege battles. Navy combat also isn't great. It's serviceable, but it feels unbalanced at times. The auto-resolve problem also crops up here. Basically, if you use the Nelson doctrine of never mind formations, just go straight at them, hitting them with as many broadsides as you can, then they'll usually die or surrender, even if they significantly outnumber you. If you're playing as a small pirate nation, this can initially make you feel like David slaying Goliath, but it gets old pretty fast. This is why a lot of people cite Napoleon Total War as the superior game, and I'm almost inclined to agree. Napoleon is far more technically robust with much improved naval combat. The only reason I don't rank that one in the top spot is simply because it's not as big as Empire. If Napoleon had the scale of Empire, I'd name that one as my favourite instead, because that one is also really damn good. And that goes for many other entries in this series. To be clear, I didn't make this video to tell you you're wrong or anything. If you think Medieval or Rome or Shogun is the better game, I love those ones as well, and I totally get why you'd say that. Either way, I hope you enjoyed listening to my reasons for loving this game and maybe even saw it in a new light. This video was more me explaining why I personally rank Empire at the top. If you agree or disagree or have your own hot take on any other Total War game, I'd love to read about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching guys. If you liked this video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps us out and allows you to stay up to date on all new uploads, which happen every 2 weeks. You can also use the links in the description to follow SideQuest on Twitter and join our Discord to learn more about upcoming videos in advance, as well as other news. Until next time, this has been Rowan from SideQuest. Have a good one.